terrible at pimping my stuff, so I thought dressing like a pimp might make it a little bit easier. I have blogs where you can read stuff and see things and interact with me. My main one is postmortemstudios.wordpress.com. My writing one and sort of diary blog is over at talesofgrim.wordpress.com. Hope to see you there.
Hello lovelies, you're not going to see me on the video today because I need to show you some stuff and I'm not really feeling like it, to be honest. But plenty of people have asked how I make my videos, and I've always resisted talking about it because I don't think I'm any sort of expert. I'm entirely self-taught. I use a rather eclectic mix of software and resources to make my videos. I don't spend a huge amount of time on it, maybe an hour, sometimes two, sometimes a little bit more if it's a big one, but that's about it. So I don't think I'm a particular source of inspiration for anybody when it comes to this sort of thing, but I keep being asked, both by my patrons and by people in the comments and privately, so why not? Just bear in mind that my videos aren't particularly fantastic or technically competent or anything of the sort. But let's get into it. Before you can make a video, you need to know what it is that you're going to make that video about. And that can often be quite difficult. I usually make videos about things that have been on my mind for one reason or another. That's just how I am. This is not how you're supposed to do YouTube. You're supposed to do one topic per channel because that helps search algorithms and so on. And I've certainly seen that when I've done like a string of reviews and things, the watch times and the subscriptions and so on go up, but it's just not me. So I just go with whatever happens to be on my mind at the time or something that's been niggling at me for a long time. You could always just go for whatever the hot topic of the day is. Chasing clout in that way can be effective. I have opinions on everything, which are usually different to the majority, so I can do a different angle on a hot topic of the day. That can be good. There's always stuff happening in the news, and I'm a bit of a news junkie, so if I think I have something to contribute to a big news story, I might do something about that. Things that make you emotional can be quite successful, and it's also cathartic to let it all out. So things that have been irritating me will often end up as topic fodder. I have things that are irregular series, like my reviews and so on, so I might think it's time to do something like that. Often, if I've got into a fight with someone online, I might do a more nuanced and personable reply on YouTube where people can hear the tone of my voice, and if I bother to appear on camera, they can see my body language and so on. So that's also cathartic and sometimes useful, and I can create stock answers in video form for when people get on the wrong side of me. So that's also quite useful. But you can draw inspiration for a video from anything, and it doesn't really matter if lots of other people have covered it or whatever else. I also keep a list of topics that have come to me for one reason or another, and sometimes I dip into that, or I look at it again and I decide, no, I don't want to make a video on topic A, topic B, topic C, and I delete them from that. But it is useful to keep a list of evergreen topics that you can maybe talk about. I start by gathering all of the graphics and images, video backgrounds, clips, snippets, and so on that I need. Not all of them, but most of them. Other things come up when I review the video and think, oh, this would look good in here, and so on. Sometimes I make a script, but generally only for my longer videos. Most of the time I make a bullet point set in Notepad or something, which is what I did for this video. Sometimes I just go off the cuff. Bullet points is a good middle ground because you end up speaking more naturally, constructing your sentences and so on in a more interesting way, but it also stops you rambling in a way that a completely off-the-cuff video will tend to do. I have a subscription to video blocks where I get some of my elements, some of my footage, some of my backgrounds. Before I had the money to pay for a subscription to video blocks, I used things like Pond5, a few other free sources of video material, or ripped from YouTube if it was someone who supplies video backgrounds and allows you to use them and so on. You can also find a lot of green screen resources on YouTube, and then you just use a YouTube downloader that you find online to grab that video. Hopefully a good enough resolution. When it comes to music, I tend to use Teknoaxe quite a lot. Bass Rebels is another good resource for music. Fadeahead and a few other musical artists will make their material available to you to use for free on your YouTube videos, sometimes with an acknowledgement, sometimes not. FILMORA has a reasonably good built-in set of musical options, and you can download more from their resources site, Film Stocks, many of which are free or come with your base subscription. And YouTube Music is probably the most overused, but you can still find stuff there. For sound effects, I go to freesound.org. If you want to add some swooshes, or some other kind of background material, especially if you're doing something like a radio play, then that's an excellent resource, and you should donate them money occasionally to keep going. Finally, it's time to start. Now, I have some resources pre-made, so I use a random selection plugin for Windows to choose a random intro, a random outro, a random end background. I import all my selected graphics, etc., and then I'm pretty much good to go. I will hook that stuff up, choose some transitions and so on as well, make sure that the basic layout all looks okay, and then it's time to record. Now it's time to record and arrange everything. Now, I use a program called FILMORA, not the advanced version of FILMORA, but the more basic version of FILMORA. I started out using Windows native video editing software. I don't have a particularly technical mind for anything more complicated, so I don't tend to use things like After Effects or the Sony Studios or anything. But FILMORA seems to strike a good sort of halfway balance. I've produced commercial quality material using FILMORA, despite it not being a full suite, like some of the other video editing and control programs from Adobe or Sony or whoever else. It works fine for me. It's tweakable enough. There's enough options and plugins and add-ons and so on that you can make it do 90% of what you want. So that's really good enough for me. I record using a webcam, a HD Pro C920 from Logitech, which seems to serve quite well. I generally record to 720p, sometimes higher. The more high quality videos have certain advantages in searches and so on, but if you want to keep the file size somewhat reasonable, 720 is pretty much good enough, unless you're doing something really visual. Sometimes I record the audio separately, typically using Audacity. Sometimes I export the audio, which you can do from FILMORA, and then clean it up and then re-import it. Sometimes I just use the native audio from FILMORA. Just depends on what I feel that I need to do. So the most intensive version of sound processing that I do would be to record a voiceover in Audacity, as I have today. I leave a blank space of 5 to 10 seconds at the beginning. I sample that and use that for noise reduction. Then I normalize the audio track. I export it to WAV, run it through a program called Levelator, which is pretty old but still pretty kick-ass, which gets all the levels and so on right, and then I would re-import it into FILMORA, I use the equalizer to emphasize the deepness and bass of my voice slightly by putting it onto the dance equalizer. That's pretty much about it. I might put the volume up a little bit, just to make sure it stands out from the music and so on that I may or may not put in the background. But that's really about it. When I import other sounds such as music, I tend to lower the volume of it by about 50%, and I create a little pocket in the equalizer at the 1000 part, and then either side of it I reduce the next two sound brackets by about 50% or more. Most people's vocal range is within that sort of pocket, and so if you do that, then the voice is better and able to stand out over any music or sound effects and so on that you put in the background. Once it's all recorded and put in place, I will typically listen through it once, looking for cues and places where I can put in things to keep people's attention on the screen, or some kind of insert, typically a quote or something from a movie, or whatever else. I will typically listen through it once. So software: FILMORA, Audacity, Levelator, occasionally Adobe After Effects, but it runs really badly on my machine, so probably not. Resources: Film Stocks, which is by FILMORA and sort of part of their built-in system. Video Blocks, which is a subscription video site. YouTube, various others. freesound.org. And just Google searches if I just need static images, or maybe a GIF or something for emphasis. That's pretty much it. Regarding my camera setup, like I say, it's C920 mounted on one of my monitors. Lighting: I have two umbrella lights, a ring light and a spotlight, and depending what time of year, how much cloud cover and so on, depends how much of that I have to turn on, but typically I have to turn it all on to get a decent green screen. The green screen I have is one that slides up and down like a display you might have at a convention, which is just convenient for storage and so on, and for not having to have the green screen up all the time. When it comes to editing, it's not a huge amount of work for me. I don't jump cut. If I fumble things slightly, I'll leave them in. It's not that important. And for me, part of the reason for having a video channel is to seem more natural, more engaged, for people to see and hear and feel what I'm saying, more than in text, where I will be perhaps more likely to edit things more cleanly for blogs and so on. So usually, if necessary, I will listen back to the video. I will smooth it out here and there, using presets, adding background music at a lower level, which helps crowd out whatever background noise might still remain. Use the equalizer in whichever way best suits my voice, which is typically the dance setting in FILMORA. If there are any overly long pauses, I might trim out sections of audio there. And as I go through, I add little effects and objects and things to emphasize what I'm saying, or just to make sure there's something going on the screen, because people like to see something shiny and jangly. And then finally, it's time to upload your video to YouTube. So you'll need a thumbnail, which I typically put together while the video is uploading, unless it's a really short video. You'll need a description, a title, usually a good idea to put a hashtag in, so when it propagates across social media like Twitter, it's already pre-hashtagged. So something like hashtag TTRPG, they're at it again, or something. You should repeat the title and the tags with and without hashtags in the way that you tag the video, though that's less important now than it used to be, and you should mention it in the description. Basically, repetition and even using the word while you're making the video how I make my videos, how I make my videos, how I make my videos. The more repetition there is, the more likely it is to be picked up, and the more likely it is to be presented to people, from the auto captioning, from the searches, and from the various mysteries of the algorithm. So that's a good way to do it. I found the program vidIQ, which is an add-on for your browser, add-on for YouTube, quite useful in sort of training myself how to pick good hashtags, write good descriptions, and so on. But after a while I wasn't seeing the benefit for the cost that I was putting into it. But getting a sub for a month or two or something might be worthwhile for you to kind of train yourself to set up the video, the description, the tags, the title, and everything in the best way possible. I use Photoshop to make my thumbnails, and even if I'm reusing art, I will typically turn up the vibrance and the saturation so that it stands out, and I tend to use the same sort of text style from video to video as a cue to people that it's one of mine. So that's something to bear in mind. And that's really it. You're done. Nothing terribly spooky or difficult about any of it. Trust me.
WIGHTCHESTER, Prison City of the Damned, is currently funding on Indiegogo. Please go there and support this city crawl for 5th edition and probably Morkborg, Grimdark, and Lamentations of the Flame Princess.